Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another Champions League live preview. As for the first time in my entire YouTube career, I am lucky enough to make a Chelsea preview ahead of a Champions League quarterfinal, because since I have been on YouTube, Chelsea haven't made it to quarterfinals. So that's why this is a great day, and that's why I'm excited. As you can see, I am joined by Mr. EuroExpert, by Alex already. Monster should be joining us hopefully as soon as possible. I haven't heard from him, so let's hope everything's all right, and he just joins us very soon. So that should be happening. But before we go into anything else, first of all, massively appreciate you coming on, Alex. He will tell us everything we need to know about Porto today. But how have you been? It's been a minute. I hope you're well, bro.
I'm doing very good, thank you. Sorry, or a comment about the first time there's been a UCL quarter you've got to preview made me laugh a bit harder than maybe I should have. But yeah, I'm excited for Chelsea, and well, we'll find out if I think Chelsea will make it through to the semis, and give you the insight on that.
Exactly. I mean, it will be super interesting. You know, the game tomorrow, obviously, games tonight happening. And I mean, obviously, people that might not know, both of these fixtures, for us, the official away leg and the official home game, will both be played in Seville, whatever, which I always find a bit weird, especially with the away goal rules still applying. That just makes no sense. Obviously, it was the case for a few teams and a few fixtures in the round of 16 already, but it's just dodgy. I find it a bit dodgy, but hey, it is what it is. It is what it is, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. I think I'll wait for Monster until we talk about the Kepa versus Rudiger stuff, because obviously Tuchel spoke about it a lot today in the press conference. Even Mateo Kovacic in his press conference was asked about it, and there's just been a lot of talk about that. So just, you know, discuss quickly how we feel about that. We'll, you know, like I said, get Alex's analysis of Porto. I did a bit of reading up on it, so you know, so we can go back and forth, so it's not just Alex giving you a whole bloody monologue, because who wants to hear monologues? That's not what we're here for. So you know, let's make that an interesting discussion. We'll preview the game as a whole, do some, you know, predicted 11, what we think Tuchel will go for, and all of that good jazz. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers, so you know, the sooner we can get there, the bloody better. I mean, Ian Craig keeps telling me we're gonna just hit it by the end of April. Not sure about that, but hey, if you're gonna make it happen, ladies and gentlemen, please do so. So subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that like button. You know, I always say this, you know, little pun joke, whatever you want to call it. It's now just an annoying, a boring, grey little thumb. If you click it, it turns blue. As we know, blue is the color. So, you know, you just have to go do that. But yeah, if you, of course, have anything to add or whatever, you know, don't hesitate to use the super chat function. But Europass, I'm not sure who you are. Clearly, you're from the same town as me, so I appreciate that. But yeah, message me somewhere so I know who you are. That'd be quite good. But you know, let's just dive straight into it. Obviously, Porto, the Portuguese team. You know, it can't be made more obvious than, you know, the city being called Porto. It's not quite creative now, is it? But anyways, they're currently second in the Portuguese league, in Liga NOS, behind Sporting, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what Benfica are doing these days, but as far as I'm aware, Porto are second behind Sporting, although a little bit off. It's not like they're super close, but still playing a decent season. Obviously knocked out Juventus in the round of 16. So, you know, definitely not a team to be underestimated. They have a man that goes by the name of Pepe, who everyone thought, well, he left Real Madrid. God knows how many years ago that is now. Man still playing Champions League quarterfinals. So, you know, fair play to the guy. Obviously, they have a lot of other very good players. A couple of them suspended, including, I'm pretty sure, Oliveira, the midfielder, one of their best players. Also, their top goal scorer so far this season. I'm always kind of butcher his name, Taremi or whatever. No, he's suspended as well. While Chelsea, thankfully for this one, do not have any suspensions. Let's see whether we have for the second leg. But for tomorrow, we do not. So, Alex, let me quickly ask you, what do you think, before we get into crazy details, what do you think of Porto as a whole? Are people right to, you know, just feel, obviously you were here for the Champions League draw live reaction, right, that we did. And you were like, I'm not sure whether you really want to play Porto. You were always like, don't get too gassed about it. I was like, yeah, but come on, they're still the worst team of the lot. So what do you make of that?
I think I'm a little more towards favouring Chelsea off that, but there's still elements of it, because this is the broad thoughts is Porto are probably Chelsea's biggest test and Tuchel's biggest test, coming at a really interesting time. Throughout this season, Chelsea have had issues of being clinical, and in the particular latter stages of Lampard, it felt like the organisation was all over the place. We all remember the 4-1-5 formation that existed against Leicester, which wasn't fun. So it's coming against Porto, which are a team are incredibly well organised and disciplined. They're giving no space. They went 8 hours in the Champions League without conceding. This is a team that are going to test all of the faults that have been reported in this Chelsea side, and it's going to be a test to see if they can overcome it now and if Tuchel's done enough to help them overcome it.
So would you say they're a tougher test than Atletico Madrid?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's harsh to say a tougher test than Atletico Madrid, but I will say they're a tougher test than Dortmund would have been. Dortmund are actually looking into it now.
They're in the mud, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Dortmund would have been the ideal team, actually, in my opinion. But Porto, there's talent-wise, easy, but organisation-wise, very, very, very tough.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. It's a tough one because, I mean, when did Chelsea last concede in the Champions League? I think we drew 1-1 at home to Krasnodar, didn't we? But we haven't conceded since then. And other than that, we haven't conceded. We conceded 1 against Rennes away. I think we only conceded 2 goals in this whole Champions League campaign as well. And that includes under Lampard, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure about this. Obviously, we haven't conceded 1 against Atletico, which, fair play. And so we're good defensively, other than against West Brom. But that was in both legs, regardless of who the manager is, which is not good against West Brom. So, we're not playing West Brom on Wednesday, so it's fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, Porto is a weird one. Like, did I expect them to beat Juve? Probably not. But Juve were also beat by Lyon last season. So anyone can beat Juve in the Champions League these days, especially with bloody Pirlo in charge. I mean, he looks like he has less of a clue what's going on than bloody Lampard. I don't know what's happening there, but, I mean, they're shambles. I mean, they've won, the last 9 league titles, and they're, 15 points off or something crazy? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a bit of a shambles over there, to be honest, but you shouldn't underestimate Porto anyways. How big of an effect do you think it has that Oliveira and the striker, Taremi? Am I saying this correctly, or is it
Oliveira and Taremi? So yeah, pretty much.
Taremi, exactly. Yeah. How big of an effect do you think it has on them that those 2 are suspended?
Interestingly, not as much as you would think. So Oliveira is the top scorer with 11 goals, and Taremi's got 9. This is at least in the league, but Taremi's got 6 assists. So on paper, Taremi and Oliveira, Porto's biggest outlets, right? But Oliveira's goals have mainly come from set pieces, penalties and free kicks. I think a large chunk of that actually from penalties. And even though Taremi's got 9 goals in the league, is 6 assists, Porto really, even though they're the top scorers in the league, we're not going to go too much into league, but they tend to spread their goals around the team. And if anything, against Juventus, Marega was providing a bit more of a dangerous threat than Taremi. So missing those 2 players, I think, will not harm Porto too much. The only thing I think it will do is make him potentially a little weaker from a set-piece perspective. But even then, Oliveira's goal was quite lucky against Juventus. I mean, Ronaldo turned his back and Szczesny kind of scrambled a little late towards the ball. So from that perspective, I actually don't think Porto will be too annoyed at that. But Laurenz, I will throw one thing interesting out there, because we're since going into Porto, there's a lot of good things to say. But Sergio Conceição, the manager, actually before today in their press conference, he came out and said he wished Chelsea had won at the weekend, because he thinks the loss, he said pretty much word for word, having that loss means they're going to be a lot more alert. It's like a wake-up signal before the game, and I wish they had won. Which, considering how bold he was before, which wound up all of you guys about how he was saying, yeah, we'll beat Chelsea. It's kind of out of character.
Although didn't that end up being like a fake story, and he didn't actually ever say that?
Potentially, I'm not too sure, to be fair. But I know even before this game, to make sure, I was looking on Porto's website, Porto have been billing this up as quite a big fight, and he had said that even before this, that Porto can do anything. They don't need possession. We took down Juve. Chelsea are a different team to Juve, but we've still got the quality and belief. But it kind of came out of nowhere, the idea of, I wish they hadn't lost at the weekend.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you definitely see it. Like, it makes sense, and kind of, especially when you play in Europe, you always think a little bit like that. Especially when you're probably the underdog, you are kind of hoping for the favorite to be a little bit complacent. That's probably your best chance of getting through. And realistically, Porto are the underdog in this, or maybe underdog is slightly harsher for word, but Chelsea, you would say, are the favourites, considering we beat bloody, Atletico Madrid. I know their form in 2021 hasn't been brilliant, but even still, and even though the advantage in their leads in La Liga has shrunken drastically down to just 1 point, they are still top of La Liga. So they're still not like awful. And we just knocked them out. And let's be honest, quite comfortably. Like, we beat them and they barely had any chances. The closest thing they had was a possible penalty. Other than that, they never even really threatened Mendy, in all honesty, over 2 legs. So, you can certainly look at it both ways. My difficult way of looking at the game is it's too similar to the Atletico game. I'm going into it thinking similar things, albeit obviously the second leg isn't at Stamford Bridge. I'm like, first leg, go on, not all out, but go for it. Try to score as much as you can, just because, away goals are a big thing. And then second leg, if we can nick one, fine. If we can just shut up shop, that's also fine. Then I don't care anymore. Obviously, all depends on what happens tomorrow, how we need to approach and should approach a second leg. But it's just, why are Chelsea being drawn against all the Burnleys from Europe?
It's fair.
They even also play a 4-4-2. It's like Conceição is his name, yeah?
Yes.
Exactly. It's like his idol is Sean Dyche or something. Nah, I'm taking the piss, but you know what I mean? They will defend. Let's be honest. Both legs against Juventus, they had around 35% of the ball. I would argue we are probably better on the ball than Juventus. So you could argue maybe that even goes to 70% possession for us, depending on how the game goes. You never know. We could have someone sent off after half an hour again. Touch wood, we don't. But you never know how that will go. But is it just going to be them sitting back, making spaces as tight as they possibly can and trying to hit on the break and get goals from set pieces? Or is there anything more, shall we say, complex to it that I might not see coming?
I mean, you set me up for a bit of a different answer there, because generally they are going to be sitting back and they are going to be defending the box. And it's not necessarily a stereotype or anything. Conceição has pretty much said that. He said, we don't need the ball to win. And I think everyone knows how this game will go out. Chelsea will look to dominate the ball. And Porto haven't got the quality to keep the ball and do well with it. I mean, I was watching them at the weekend and they're not particularly great when being the favourite rather than the underdog. But what I will say about them is, even though I would be more confident for a Chelsea fan going into this game than Atletico, Porto are we're using the Burnley comparison, but if Atletico are legendary Burnley, Porto are premium Burnley. And that's mainly down to their centre-backs. And Mbemba and Pepe, I was talking about before, if Chelsea start as Giroud or an Abraham, although Abraham doesn't look like he's starting, but still, if they're to start a player who's going to thrive mainly on aerial threat, I think it's a giant waste of a player, because Pepe and Mbemba have been rock solid at the back, and even against Juventus, I remember watching the game thinking, how many clearances aerials won? Pepe had won all of his aerial duels, and he had made 19 clearances over 120 minutes, which is stupid numbers. Everything that went into that box was put out. And I think the one big difference, to make it a bit more easy to say, the big difference between Porto and Atletico, and the reason you should be more confident, is that Atletico have the quality to make something happen out of nothing, even on a counter, whereas Porto thrive mainly off their organisation and off the ball movement. But Marega and even Taremi, if he was available, Diaz, they're decent players. But the only true player who would probably get into a Chelsea side or a squad is probably Jesus Corona. He's the only one who would be one to watch, and he's probably going to go right wing. So maybe you want to play Chilwell over Alonso there. But besides that, they've not really got superb quality. They rely mainly off their organisation and their coaching.
That's it. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, we heard the comments from Pepe in the press conference today, basically saying, they just do whatever they're told by the manager. Basically unconditional. It's almost like Mourinho, Inter, Mourinho, Chelsea. First time Chelsea, or even to some extent Simeone, Atletico, kind of vibes. We just we go to war for that guy, and that's always a difficult team to beat for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. And I guess the interesting thing is, how do you approach the game? Is it going to be a case of, let's try to be as close to prime Barcelona as we can and just pass them out of the park? Or is it just press them silly and just force them into mistakes and try to nick chances that way? Obviously, the problem that Chelsea has had, in particular under Thomas Tuchel, but you could argue all season long, other than maybe for a month or so period, in November, maybe late October, we just don't quite score enough, and we aren't capable of pouncing on mistakes for the opponents as much as we should. I mean, we're drastically underperforming our XG on average. Obviously, if you could look at all across the season, maybe not, but because we had the odd games where we outperformed it. But if you look at individual games for the last few months, we've always kind of drastically underperformed in terms of XG. So that's kind of been our problem. The weird thing is we've not scored more than 2 goals on any game under Thomas Tuchel. But even when we concede 5, like last time out, we still score 2. That is weird to me anyway. So it will be interesting how, obviously we'll talk about lineups in just a minute, but it will be interesting how to approach it. How do you think Chelsea are most likely to, let's say, beat Porto? Is it going to be press them, just be aggressive and just try to obviously outwork is a difficult term against a team that will defend, because if you just defend, you just run less, let's be honest, unless you defend by pressing. But will that be a case that we should be doing that, or will it just be calm, just be patient and just pass it around?
It's interesting because I mean, it's just one point to make. It might be slightly out of date, to be fair, but Sergio Conceição has taken charge of Porto since 2017, and the one team in the Champions League and in Europe to really thump them. Well, there's another team as well who kind of relevant, but the one team was Liverpool in 17-18, 18-19. Liverpool beat them 5-0 on aggregate in round of 16, and then I think in the quarterfinals they beat them 6-1 on aggregate. So, and obviously Liverpool in that time were one of the most heavy pressing teams across Europe. So it's an interesting point. Should Chelsea look to meet him high up the pitch or be patient in a way? And being patient, of course, has its risks. But I think it's hard to say how to approach it, because Chelsea have been, I think, against Atletico, they proved themselves to be a really good counter-pressing team. Atletico effectively boxed in for quite a lot of the time. But with Porto, I think the one thing you shouldn't do, and I did kind of say it before, but the one thing you shouldn't do is look to cross the ball into the box, because that's where they'll eat it up. And I think with Chelsea, you will want to play, we'll get into the lineup, as you said, but they'll want to play players who are a bit more quicker and able to disrupt the players as well, like disrupt the defensive organisation. Because even though it also 1v1, this Porto team is tricky. Like Mbemba, former Newcastle player, is having the season of his life. In the UCL, Champions League, he's won 83% of his tackles, which is fantastic. That's one of the best in the whole competition. So it is to kind of show that even going 1v1 against these players, they're experienced defenders. And even though the fullbacks are a little weaker, you can't, maybe passing is the way forward, but it will have to be quick and high tempo. It can't just be slow and be impatient. They will need to make sure they're moving this team around in a manner to create space for Chelsea players.
Exactly. As you might be able to see now, or probably hear, especially in a second, because obviously my good friend here isn't a fan of the face cam. My partner in crime for player ratings has joined us, because I have no idea, guys, what happened to Monster. I hope he's fine. But so I was like, Alex, as brilliant as he is, we're still talking about Chelsea here. So I would like to get another Chelsea fan in. I messaged Pice, the legend that he is. Man turned up quick. Almost said your real name. Pice, how are you? Cheers for coming so quickly.
No, I'm good, bro. Good to be here again. I saw your message, jumped on. Why not? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever you guys are doing. I can see you're doing a bit of a Porto preview, so I'm looking forward to it. Exactly.
I mean, because I haven't really been joined by a Chelsea fan yet, we kind of focused more on Porto so far before we're getting a bit more of a deep dive into Chelsea, shall we say. Just one last question to you, Alex. Obviously, Porto line up in a 4-4-2. They are expected to do the same tomorrow. Is that the shape that they keep, no matter whether they're in a defensive transition or offensive transition? Is that because obviously how Chelsea change it up? On the ball we're kind of a 3-2-5, while off the ball we're either a 4-4-2 or a 5-3-1, whatever you want to call that. I'm missing the player, but you know what I'm saying. Do they stick to the 4-4-2 regardless, or do they drop into a 6? Do they drop into a 5? Do you know any of that?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked that, because the Atletico comparisons are right there. I mean, it's what BT Sport were doing the entire game against Juventus, which was quite jarring. But Porto, the thing that actually really stands out about them is they're very fluid. And it's not even as if in defence they'll go into a 4-4-2 and attack a three at the back. Against Juventus and against City, at different times they were defending in 5s, 3s, and 4s. It was basically whatever situation happens, if it's a counter attack or a slow passing move, they don't really have a set shape they return to. Actually, it's because they're players like, so you've got Luis Diaz, who technically a striker, but he'll be positioned on the wing. So sometimes, or quite a lot of the time, he'll move inwards. Then you've got Corona, who I said is probably the best player. He gets shipped around everywhere. In fact, if you look at who scored, he's played over 500 minutes, I believe, at right back, right mid, right wing, left mid, and about 100 minutes at left back. Which isn't to say he started in those positions. It just kind of shows that these players are very fluid. They move around, and it's always in reaction to the opposition, and the best way to deny as much space and crowd the box as much as possible. So I think that's one thing to just look out for, maybe more from a visual perspective, because it's kind of fun to watch, right? Team going in and out of formation. Sounds hard to believe, but I think Chelsea will see it. Porto will do absolutely everything possible to deny much space and mix up throughout the game.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that will be interesting, and that makes it more tough for us. Flyers has asked a good question here, which people might not know. Who does Alex actually support? Before, I let him give his real answer. Basically, what he is a glory hunter, because he just supports a different team. He just supports a different team every year. It's like, oh, they play nice football. That's great. We spoke about this before we went live, and we were just like, all he does is really just look after his mental health. He just watches great teams and just like supports them for a season. They're for a great season, then they're shit the next year, so he supports someone else. Now I'm taking a piss. He's just a football fan rather than supporting any individual team. Have I stated that correctly, bro?
I kind of like that explanation. If you were to call me a plastic fan, I would own that. I think that's a fun tagline. No, I don't. I'm a neutral, and I just watch a lot of teams around Europe. Write up all my different scout reports. I've got one on Porto at the moment. And there's just a few teams I appreciate. I've got a good interest in Chelsea. I grew up supporting them a little, and then I hit the age of 11 and 12 and realised I don't actually particularly like them that much from emotional perspective, in the sense that I can't call myself a fan in the same way Laurenz can. I don't react emotionally, or I don't get the same amount of pumping energy I do for watching Chelsea. I mean, the best way to summarise, I watched Chelsea and West Brom on the weekend and I was laughing after West Brom scored. But it's also because I get to come onto this stream.
I think there was a lot of Chelsea fans that were as well, especially come the fourth goal.
Maybe with like tears streaming down their face. No, but yeah, I'm a neutral, and I'd like to sit back and give a more unbiased opinion. So at least from me that I'm not swaying it in any agenda. I don't care if Mason Mount's the best player in the world or he's overrated or anything like that. Whatever you get from me is a lot more grounded and neutral.
That is fair enough. And now, because we have Pys here, we'll talk about the whole Kepa and Rudiger thing at the end, because it doesn't quite fit the conversation just now. Let's get into talking about Chelsea, how we should line up, how we think we will line up. Obviously, what Thomas Tuchel confirmed in the press conference today is that Kante is fit, but he will be on the bench, not start. Christian Pulisic is fit. We don't know whether he will start, but presumably he will not. I would be very surprised by that. And also, Tammy Abraham will be in the squad. All three of them will be in the squad. Billy Gilmore, by the way, left out. Bit strange, but fair enough. Especially when you have 12 subs. Why don't you just put Billy on the bench? But hey, is what it is. What do we think about that, Pys? What do we think about that? Pulisic fit, but he couldn't play the second half. Bit weird. And Kante is back fit, and you put them on the bench. Unless it's a case of they're not match fit enough to play more than, say, 45 minutes. If there's even like the smallest of doubt of their fitness, I'm like, why are you even putting them on the bench in the first place?
Yeah, no, I think with Pulisic, obviously he came off like he tried to run it off, didn't he? And then he was like, no, to Tuchel. So I don't know, maybe it was more of like a precautionary sub, just didn't want to risk it kind of thing, but wasn't too bad. So I don't know. He's not in my starting 11, but I don't really mind if he does start. He got a goal at the weekend, and he'd done a couple of his old sort of dribbles that he used to do. He's not been looking like his usual self for a while now, but still, the guy has talent, for sure. With Kante, the midfield's going to pick itself. It's going to be Jorginho and Kovacic, and the thing is with those two, they need to perform, like have a proper masterclass tomorrow, because obviously West Brom was terrible defensively. Jorginho especially, obviously, Kovacic as well didn't have the greatest of games. So, to be honest with you,
I know that hurt you to say that, bro. I know it hurt.
Yeah, it does hurt because I love Kovacic, but I have to be like unbiased as possible. Although he was good in the second half, I think that I thought we debated that the other day. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the game, to be honest. I think it's going to be quite difficult. It's good.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be much in it. I think maybe like a 1-0 or a 1-1 or a 2-1, something like that. I don't, Porto are very good defensively, so I don't know, man. We have a trouble with scoring goals, so I'm not in the best of moods for tomorrow. I'd say definitely.
That's the weird one, really, because Porto, Alex just named us some stats and how brilliant Pepe and Mbemba were at the back, and how just brilliant they were. But they lost the second leg 3-2. Obviously, they went through on away goals, but they still actually conceded 3 goals on that day. They conceded 4 in both legs. It's good defensively, and obviously Juve have Ronaldo, who is a bigger goal threat than most players ever. Hasn't he? Well, he has the most goals scored by any player ever. Unless Pele counts his friendlies, not friendly, exhibition games goals, or just goals in the park, whatever he likes to do. But, so Ronaldo is maybe a bit of an exception to the rule. But in general, it's clearly possible to score against them as much as they're good defensively. Obviously, some of the goals that Juve scored, one was a deflected free kick, I'm pretty sure, from quite far out, which Chelsea haven't done in a way too long, scoring a proper long-range screamer. I guess Mount had it against Morecambe. But it's bloody more. Do you know what I mean? But it's something. I can't think of another one. So it will be interesting. It's definitely possible to score. But let's talk through the team that we think, and including Alex as well, what he think makes the most sense for us to go with. Obviously, Mendy will be in goal. We know that. Especially, who knows? Kepa might have a black eye. I don't know. After the Russell with Rudiger, we'll talk about that later. Back 3. Thomas Tuchel confirmed that Antonio Rudiger will start. So let's say aftermath problems or backlash for Rudiger being left out or whatever after what happened. So, Rudiger will start. But my biggest question is, does Thiago Silva start? I don't even know what I'd pick personally. I don't even know yet because, not playing Christensen for 2 games in a row, not starting. Obviously, in the end, he played an hour on the weekend, but that wasn't the intentional plan. So it makes me think the plan was to start Christensen. But did Thiago Silva getting sent off change that plan? Because obviously Thiago Silva is now suspended against Palace on the weekend. I don't know. So let me ask you first, Pys. Who do you think our back 3 will/should be?
Okay, so the back 3 that I think it will be is going to be Rudiger, Christensen, and Aspi. The back 3 that I would pick, I want to try it because I don't know. Obviously, you guys know, Laurenz. I'm not really the biggest fan of Aspi. To be honest with you, I'd try and fit Silva and AC in the back 3. And I can't remember what game it was, but AC did slot to right centre-back and looked quite good. So I think I'd go with Rudiger, Silva and AC. I mean, I know Silva got sent off for the weekend, but I've been having this debate with people. I'm just like, guys, it's bloody Thiago Silva. It's a huge European fixture. We need his experience. We need his quality first and foremost. Everyone's overreacting at the weekend. Move on from it. He's a world-class player still, in my opinion. So for me, he's 100% starter. So that would be my back 3. But I don't think he's going to start, to be honest. I think Christensen will slot in, and I just don't see Aspi being replaced because club captain and all the sort of politics that come behind that as well. So I think that's what it will be.
Yeah, I see it. I think it's the opposite way around. I think Thiago will play it. I think I would play Christensen. Not because I don't rate Thiago, but just the 3 of Rudiger, Christensen, and Aspi have been so good that I think they just work so well. As great as Thiago is, no matter how great you are, if those 3 work so well against whoever we played, it didn't matter what it was, Liverpool, Man United, Everton, it didn't matter. We kept clean sheets against a lot of them. To me, it seems to click more, obviously, and even with Jorginho and Kovacic in front of them, that didn't seem to work against West Brom. Obviously, we had clearly an off day. The international break didn't work, as it so often does for us. I get that. But to me, I don't know. It's just, I don't like ripping things up that really work. I don't like ripping functional structures up. And I would have been in more of a doubt in my head about this before the weekend game. But after I saw what happened there, I'm like, I don't think that would have happened if Christensen played. And this is not necessarily criticism of Thiago. It's just them 3 were used to playing together, plus the double pivot, and they weren't used to playing with Thiago. or the other way around, him not used to playing with them. Would you make of that, Pice? And then we'll get to Alex as well. I mean, but I think it's a fair point too. Like, I'm not saying it's a wrong decision to start Thiago. That's just how I'm edging towards, if that makes sense.
No, I completely get you. Obviously, they were very, very good for a while, that partnership, obviously, Christensen and Rudiger. But for me, whenever I see Silva on the bench, I'm like, it's kind of like when we had Hazard. Like, I see him as that sort of figure, like, in our team. He's so good. Like, honestly, I rate Silva so highly still, even though he's age, and people just leaving him out. Something just doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right, basically. I feel like if he's fit, he has to play, honestly. That's just how I personally feel about it. And you can go off form and stuff, but I just think, like, the guy is just so good still. Like, it's like Pulisic playing on top form and then benching Hazard because he's on top form. That's the way I look at it. Like, Christensen's great, but Silva, like, Thiago Silva, like, come on, like, I don't know. That's just the way I view it, personally.
I see that. I would make a case that it's a little bit different when you're talking about offensive players to defensive players, because organization and being used to each other and the structure is more of a prevalent thing in a defensive position than it is in an offensive position when you compare the Hazard Pulisic thing. But I see what you're saying. Alex, just to ask you, do you think it would make more sense to go back to the Christensen, or do you think just Thiago Silva is too good not to play?
So I'd like to begin the point with...
Should we just go back to play Christensen like it was when Thiago was out?
Yeah.
Or is just Thiago too good not to play and he has to play? And we know that Rudiger and Aspi will be the other two.
Also, just sort of against Porto, their attack is, like I said, their attack isn't really based off any individual quality. It's off really good coaching and movement. So whoever you need to pick at the back needs to have incredibly good organization and is able to... What you don't want is, I've seen a clip recently of Kurt Zuma's highlights, well, anti-highlights, where he's walking back or he's not in position. You can't have that against Porto, because they might not have a player who's going to take it around one of these defenders. They're not going to skill them up or anything like that, if you want to use Laban's terms. They're just very good at finding space and dummy runs and things like that. So you need a defence who's going to stay in shape and see these things coming. Now, I'm hearing you, Laurenz, the idea of, like, Christensen. I think he's been excellent when he's played. And I think him, Rudiger and Aspi, they've been a solid defence. And I don't think you could go wrong with that. The only reason I would lend my weight behind Pies' point about Silva is just because of experience. It's less, even though it's not, I'm not saying it's risky with the other one, but it's even less risky with Silva, because I don't think these players are going to test him too much physically. But it's more that he'll be able to see the counter-attacks coming. He's going to be more experienced, and it's going to be less likely he gets pulled out of position or the defense gets pulled out of position to be able to keep him in shape. But that's where I'd come from it.
I see what you're saying with that. That is fair enough. So obviously we just have slightly different opinions for the back three, but that's fine. Let's move on to the wing backs, because let's be honest, Chelsea will play in a 3-4-2-1 formation. And the wing backs is another interesting discussion. Pice and I obviously did player ratings after the game against West Brom, and Alonso was just so weird. We should have gotten minus ratings for his defensive performance. But to be honest, going forward, he was, well, maybe besides Werner, who obviously should have had a penalty and assisted the goal, was probably our most attacking, threatening player. But just because he got himself into great positions, but then his decision making was dreadful every time. So to me, but people know this, people say I have an agenda against Werner. I don't know what people think I have against Alonso then, because I have way stronger feelings against Alonso than I do against Werner. So I would certainly pick Ben Chilwell. I think he's improved as a left wing back. And, I think we're not going to score set pieces against them anyway. You could make a case that to defend set pieces, having that little bit of extra height by Alonso could be a slight advantage. I would concede that argument and say fair, but I don't think it outweighs the lack of pace. Especially Chilwell being up against, obviously Corona, the footballer, YouTube. We're not talking about other things, right? Don't demonetize me. I can't change his name, right? But I just think it makes more sense on that side. On the other side, usually I'm a fan of just chuck Hudson at wing back and, be more aggressive and everything. Just go with Reece to be safe. I don't know. It's a Champions League quarterfinal. I'm not taking crazy risks here because, we're a good team. Other than on the weekend, we're very good defensively. and we somehow usually manage to get a goal or two. So, but I think we can be capable of that regardless of whether we have Reece or Callum. Hence why I could go with Reece. Pies, what about you? Chilwell and Reece, or would you change it up?
I would go with Chilwell and Hudson-Odoi. Bit controversial, but I do still think that Hudson-Odoi is capable of tracking back. I think he's got very, very good at that actually under Tuchel. I think his sort of tactical discipline has got so much better than under Lampard and other managers like Sarri when he, that was one of his main criticisms. Sarri said, he doesn't track back and things like that. But I think he's worked on his tactical discipline a lot. And not only that, I just think he's so much better at going forward and creating chances than James. James has the cross, yes, but Hudson-Odoi has, the cutbacks, that the spot as well that James doesn't. There was one on the weekend where James was literally by the edge, by the sideline, and he just had to play a simple cutback to Pulisic. It probably would have been a goal, but he didn't spot it. I just think Hudson-Odoi is better in the attacking areas and can help us more at wing back, I think, personally. And also, he does have more cover as well, playing with the three at the back. And I'd argue that James hasn't really played well recently. I think a lot of fans do agree with that. He's not been his best of form. So that's my decision for right wing back. But I can see the logic in going James, because he's better 1v1 defensively, of course, because he's a fullback. But I just don't really like James at wing back. Honestly, I know a lot of fans agree with me there and will agree with me. In terms of left wing back, it's a simple choice for me. You play Chilwell. I don't even rate Chilwell that highly, but Alonso is actually tragic. I'm sorry, man. I don't.
He really is, bro. No, he's not. He's not lying.
Whenever I see him in the lineup, I'm looking at the lineup tomorrow night. The first thing I look for is who is playing left wing back. If it's Alonso, my mood's already down. Apart from that, it's always Alonso and Werner I look for first. If those two are playing, my mood's already down. So Chilwell's just so much better at defending. He's so much better going forward. Alonso scores goals and stuff, but he's not a good actual going forward, taking people on and doing overlaps.
He's not a very good footballer. He's great at taking free kicks.
I don't know,
and great at scoring goals, but he's not great at much else.
He's like Antonio at West Ham. He gets goals, but you're not really sure how.
Bro, it's like people are saying here.
I just don't know. I think that's a bit harsh on Antonio.
People are saying he's our best left wing back. Why? He's not better at overlaps than he's slow. You know what I mean? He can't cross the ball. He can't take anyone on. Chilwell's got a good shot on him as well. Let's not forget that. He has scored some good goals in the past. So
yeah.
And I think he's better defensively. So it's a non-debate for me. The only debate you can have is Alonso for height, but then you're rewarding him because he's bloody tall, for God's sake, not because he's an actual good footballer. So
and that is the thing that Tuchel kind of made a thing. We play Alonso for height. Chilwell is actually a really good fullback in terms of aerial percentages. I don't know about his percentages at Chelsea, but I know when he was at Leicester, he was one of the best fullbacks in terms of winning aerial duels. And he's not short either. What is he, 5'11"? Something like that, maybe 6 foot on the edge. While Alonso is obviously 6'2", but he's still good in the air. It's not like you're putting, I don't know, Ian Martin at left wing back instead of Alonso. Then you can make that comparison saying, the height fair. But Chilwell is also good in the air. So, I would make that case. And just to quickly respond to what you said, Pies, I would play Hudson-Odoi as well, but not right wing back. I want him in the front three. And then therefore I can't physically play him at left back, right wing back, because he can't play in two positions in the same game now, can he? But Alex, who do you think should be our fullbacks or our wing backs, shall we say? Chilwell, Alonso, and on the other side?
So I wish mine's quick. And again, I'm going to lean a bit more to Pies. I think 100% Chilwell starts at left wing back. Now, the one thing I got wrong with my Atletico analysis, I got a lot right, especially Felix thought he'd have quite a game and stuff. But I thought Alonso was going to have a shocker and he played amazingly. But Porto's only solid, well, that's unfair. Porto's only player, like I said, who would get into this Chelsea team, Corona or Jesus, whichever one doesn't get you demonetised, starts at right mid. And you don't want him, you'd rather him 1v1 with Chilwell rather than Alonso. Simple. But on Porto's fullback side, they're kind of weaker defensively. And that's the reason I'd go with Hudson-Odoi for two reasons, actually. So Hudson-Odoi, I think, is a little better 1v1 than James attacking because he's a winger. But also, it's kind of a bit more of a simple thing. I think Reece James's best quality is crossing. That he's really good at pinging the ball in. but we did spend quite a bit of time as well just saying how Porto will eat crosses up. So I think I'm not saying if you start James as a howler. I think James would still have a good game. He's going to have a solid game defensively, especially. But I think starting him at right back's almost a waste of Hudson-Odoi's potential addition. Like what I'd say is I'd rather Hudson-Odoi running at Porto's left back rather than Reece James crossing from deep, and then most of the time probably that getting headed out of the box by Pepe or Member.
That is fair. That is fair. I'll give my kind of response to that when we talk about the wingers. But Cedric, I don't know what you Googled there, but that's wrong. He's 5'10". I just checked myself. But regardless, anyways, that is fair enough. I'll go to my reasons why I think Reece makes more sense in just a minute, as outside of playing Hudson-Odoi and part of the front three. I think we can all agree that a midfield two should be Jovic, Jorginho and Kovacic. Obviously, I saw Jesters before he had to leave, big up to him, say he would play Mount and Kovacic. I've said this many times. I can see Mount as a 6 in our system, but no chance ever next to Kovacic. Next to Jorginho, yes. No way can you play Kovacic and Mount together as a midfield. That is just insanity. Like even Kante and Kovacic can be insanity as well, if not one of them is very disciplined. But Mount and Kovacic, now that's just a no-no. I know we did that against bloody Fulham in the last 10 minutes, but first of all, or 20 minutes. Yeah, but first of all, they went out to 10 men and it's bloody Fulham. It's not a Champions League quarterfinals now, is it? And I know Porto will defend, but still, it's not Fulham. And I know we did against Leicester, yeah, and we got spanked left, right, and centre. So I'm not doing that. For me, it has to be Jorginho and Kovacic. I know they both had shockers on the weekend, but knowing them, rarely have 2 shockers in a row. So if anything, that makes me confident that they'll have a good game tomorrow, if I'm totally honest with you. But Alex, do you think with those 2 as well, or would you drop them out in there? I'm just saying this again, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't hear, Kante will be on the bench. Kante will not start. Tuchel has confirmed he's fit to be involved, but not to start. So that's why we're not mentioning Kante.
I think I'd start Billy Gilmore and Mason Mount in midfield. No, I'm joking.
No, we already know he's not in the squad.
It's Jovic.
Yeah. Tice, I mean, I know you said it in the beginning already, but do you want to, expand on that a little, or just leave it at that?
No, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, as you said, they rarely have 2 bad games in a row. Like that's why, especially with Jorginho, like there's something about this guy. When he plays bad, he always plays amazing. Like the next game or next few games, it's kind of like inevitable. Like we people that hate him, they just can't get away from him because, when he plays bad, they all attack him, but then he just always shuts people up, and it's just he's always done that at Chelsea. So whether or not you like him, you want him gone. He has a real good habit of shutting people up, at least for time being. He'll have bad games, yeah, and that's when they will attack him. But he does have this habit of shutting people up. And for Kovacic, for me, obviously, like one of my favourite players, I just think he's a very good player. And those 2 have had masterclasses before. Everyone's just going mental about the weekend and acting like these 2 can't absolutely dominate Porto. They can. They've got the ability. They've got the the actual communication between them, which is very important. This is why I always say Kante and Kovacic, yeah, nice, but it doesn't work as good as Jorginho and Kovacic because them 2 don't communicate together. You see how snappy usually things are between Jorginho and Kovacic. One of the shots from West Brom at the weekend actually came from Jorginho and Kovacic trying to play 1-2 at the edge of the box, and we lost the ball. People were blaming them for that, but I'm sorry, no one. Kante isn't trying that with Kovacic. Kovacic would probably just go on a run, or Kante would just go on a run. They're so comfortable together in the midfield. So for me, I'm confident they'll have a good game, and I like to see risks being taken, honestly.
And just to offer, because I know Jorginho obviously faced a lot of criticism after that game, I think to offer a bridge between the 2, I think Jorginho, his weaknesses, when it's a very unique weakness, but when Chelsea go down to 10 men, because what Jorginho is really good at in a defensive sense, even without the ball, is defending his own zone. He's actually pretty high in the team for tackles and interceptions, but as soon as he's forced to cover a bit more space than he would be expected to, that's when he can get exposed because he's not very good being counter-attacked, as I think we saw in the game earlier this season as well. Can't remember, but I remember him falling over as the other team countered. I think that's the thing with Jorginho. As soon as Chelsea go down to 10 men, he should be the first person subbed off. Just because, not because he's necessarily bad with it, it's just he becomes far less effective in that scenario, I think.
That is definitely fair. That is definitely fair. And I think Jorginho is one of those, a bit like Pipe said, obviously, yes, he had a poor game. And, obviously there was a lot of debate about this on Twitter and, what aboutism? And, you say this guy was bad. And I said, but what about him? And Jorginho is the example for, if you talk to any year that are Chelsea fans and say, I said Kovacic had a poor game. Everyone will come out, but what about Jorginho? I'm like, yeah, he had a poor game too. But that doesn't mean Kovacic didn't. It's one of those. But again, I feel confident in those two.
I love how,
just quick. No, go on.
I love how me and Pies are having very long points there about Jorginho Kovacic. I was just arguing about height in the comments the whole time.
All right, stop exposing me like that.
Sorry, back to
you. No, I'm just helping Cedric out. He's a member, and he's like, I've had the same problem with these converters of feet to centimeters myself. But I know for a fact I'm 180 and I'm 5'11. So, I know for a fact that him being 178 cannot physically be 5'8 when an inch is 2.5 of a centimeter. So don't work like that. But regardless, let's get to the front three and my explanation of why I would like Hudson. I don't want to start Timo Werner. I know even I said he was probably our best attacker, or arguably even best player against West Brom. Still don't want to start him. I keep saying this. If a team sits deep, I do not see the point in having Timo Werner on the pitch. I don't see the point. And I saw Alex, obviously, earlier on Lewis's stream, saying they don't even leave space between midfield and defence either, let alone between defence and their own goal. So where on earth am I meant to do anything with Timo Werner in that system? He doesn't finish when he gets a chance, and he can't, against an opponent like that, he can't use his space as much of a advantage. So then I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see the advantage of that. Hence why I would start Callum Hudson as the left wing back, presuming that Pulisic isn't fit to do so. I would then start Mason Mount in the front three. I know a lot of people wouldn't, but I think Mason has to start. I see people saying he harms us in the offensive play and this and that. That is all well and good. And I know that Mason's strength is between that midfield and defense area, which is probably where they shut us down a little bit. But I still think our best chance of getting goals against them is forcing them into mistakes. And the only guy and the most likely guy to make that happen is Mount. Okay, fair enough. That's maybe the one thing that Werner can offer. So I understand if people don't want to start Mount, you have to start Werner for the work rate. Fair. But I wouldn't start Werner, so I have to start Mount, if that makes sense. And then I go with Kai Havertz up top. Alex has explained it on a number of occasions. That, with the crossing, that just won't work. As much as Giroud is really good there, and hey, I didn't think he would do what he did against Seville either, and he scored bloody 4 goals there. So, if he does start, who knows? He could prove us all wrong. Because if you're really good in the air, he can just be better in the air than Mbemba and Pepe. Who knows? But it wouldn't be my first choice. And then to continue this point, why I would like Reece James as the right wing back is because Callum can also push over to the right side, Mason on the left side, and then you can kind of, rather than have almost let Callum do what he does as a right wing back, but have Reece behind him anyway, and then tuck in to create a midfield three to help us not get violated and dominated by the Porto midfield, which will be very physically strong. And then almost it's comfortable to have Aspi push out a little bit to almost play a mix of a right centre back and right back role to help Reece. Like every now and again, we've had games where Reece does this, where he plays right wing back, but kind of is in this half area, kind of as a half midfielder. That's usually the games when he ends up shooting from distance more rather than crossing constantly. And I think that could work well, especially to counter the physical dominance that the Porto midfield will probably have over Jorginho and Kovacic. If we can let Reece push inside a little, we can counter that a little. That would be my tactical idea. Whether it will work or not, whether Tuchel will do it or not, is a whole different discussion. But that's just why I would do it. And again, ladies and gentlemen, before I let Python... all right, my chair just breaking here. Before I let Python and Alex make their points, if we have nearly 200 people watching, so make sure you subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. Check out Alex on Twitter. I haven't yet added Python's link in the description because it wasn't meant to be on. So just, Twitter search CFCPys, follow him. Follow both of them. Brilliant content. And yeah, subscribe, smash the like button, do all of that. Use the super chat function if you fancy it. Become a member if you fancy it. Either the join button underneath or the link in the description. But going on from that, Pies, what did you make of my explanation of why I would like Reece at right wing back? And what did you think of my front three? And then also, what would you go for in terms of the front three?
I do agree with you. And I think there can be 2 options. But my original front three was pretty similar to yours. You had Mount, Havertz, and was it Hudson-Odoi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my original front three that I originally went with. But then I saw what Tuchel said earlier, and he said, like, Giroud's looking forward to going back to Seville. Seville, he scored a lot of goals here. He's in the running. So for me, that's just him indirectly saying he's starting. So for me, I would go for Havertz as like the false nine, Mount on the right, and Hudson-Odoi on the left. But I can also see what I can see happening, I should say, is Giroud up top, and then the wingers are interesting. Obviously, I do agree with you. I don't see the point in Werner playing. Just frustrates me. Not good against deep block. If it was playing against Liverpool or someone, then yeah, play Werner. But Porto, no. So on the left, I would probably go with. So the thing is, I want Havertz to play as well. So like Havertz maybe on the right, and then Mount on the left, and then Hudson-Odoi right wing back. I think that's why I said Hudson-Odoi right wing back.
How would you, just to quickly interject, how would you explain or justify playing Giroud? How do you think his strengths help us against a team like Porto? In particular, when they've just been so good at dealing with any sort of crossing, and that's his obviously significant strength that he has over any of the other players that we could play in that position. Yeah,
and that's why he wasn't in my actual lineup. I just think that's what Tuchel's going to do, and I think it could be. Okay. Yeah, I had Havertz as false nine because for me, I want as many runners as possible. I want the link up to be there, and Giroud can do that. He can link up with other attackers, but they've got to get close enough to him. And I don't know, man. Giroud's still hit and miss nowadays. He's either really good or really bad. So. We're going to probably chuck crosses into the box, but again, as Alex has said, Porto are very good at defending crosses. Pepe's an absolute monster in the air, but so is Giroud at times. We've got to get the accuracy right. It's all good saying chuck crosses into the bloody box, but we've got to get the crosses right. It's not only high crosses we can do as well. We can do low front post crosses. You know what I mean? We can do low crosses where Giroud peels off and then tries to finish. Cutbacks almost. So. There's a lot we can do with Giroud. He's still useful, and of course he got the away goal at Atletico Madrid. And I just think Tuchel's logic here is that he does love this stadium. So, how can you argue against it when he scored 4 here last time? And I know sometimes it sounds stupid to say, oh, you can't just bloody go off. If you're playing Bayern Munich and it was at Seville, you're going to start Giroud. It sounds stupid, but some players do have extra confidence when they score 4 goals at a stadium. So. Let's see what happens. But I think Giroud will play. And just to clarify, no Ziyech, no Werner for me, and no Pulisic.
That is fair enough. Ziyech is an interesting one anyway, because obviously he was, maybe you wouldn't say really good, but he was certainly very influential and, clinical in his performance in the second leg against Atletico. Scored that super important goal for us to put us 1-0 up in that game. Is it harsh to leave him out? Maybe so, maybe not. I'm not 100% sure. But like I said, I've given my reasons for why I would play the front three that I would. Alex, what front three do you think makes the most sense for us? Obviously, we have a lot of options. Even you went with Reece James at right wing back. Oh, no, did you in the end, you would rather go for Callum, wouldn't you?
I'd rather go for Callum, but I actually also really like your pitch as well. So I'm indifferent to those two.
Fair enough. So then we have a load of options in the front three. Werner, Giroud, Tammy Abraham, Kai Havertz, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Christian Pulisic. Probably not because he's probably not fit to start. But Hakim Ziyech, we have a lot of players. So who would you pick in that front three?
I mean, it is difficult because we have got the options, but I mean, Paz did put a good point out about Giroud, because even though he might be limited in this game aerially, he's still a very good finisher, still probably one of our best finishers, especially over an unconfident Werner. But it's also another reason why I hope he's going to be a substitute player, because I think Giroud's I think his biggest strength, even over his aerial threat, is bringing others into play. When Chelsea need to get the ball up the pitch quite quickly, he's the player they can ping balls into, and he can quickly pull it into players around him. But in Porto's team, he's going to be man-marked by probably Pepe or Mbemba. And so, one, I don't think he'll be very effective as a link-up man. And two, I don't think Chelsea need him necessarily in that way, because Chelsea are a really good team at avoiding a press. So if Porto come up high, they'll probably get able to get around it. And if Porto sit deep, then why do you need to push up higher up the pitch? If you're already up their box, then Giroud isn't too necessary, in my opinion. So I would still... I think Giroud would be better as an impact player, just because I think if you start him, it might end up being a waste. But then again, who am I meant to doubt? A World Cup winner and probably one of the best link-up players in the world. So also still a bit unfair to say he shouldn't start. But the ideal front three, I guess, would be Havertz, and then depending if he goes at right wing back, Callum Hudson-Odoi, if not Ziyech. And then if Pulisic had been fit, I would have put him over Werner, but I'm guessing I'd have to put Werner in. I have faith in him. I feel like he'll start scoring at some point. But I do respect your idea as well. The point as well that he's not going to have so much fun getting in behind this team. What he'll need to be good at, if he's going to have an impact on this game, is finishing, which leans back to all I was saying at the start, is this is Chelsea's biggest test if they can be clinical in this game, and that'll come down to Werner. But I think Ziyech as well will be Ziyech's player I will be keeping an eye on. I mean, I'll be watching Madrid, Liverpool, PSG Bayern, because I think this game's going to end up being boring for a neutral because it's going to be Porto sitting defensively. But when I rewatch it, I rewatch the recorded game, I'm going to be paying attention to Ziyech, because if we get Ajax Ziyech, UCL Ziyech, who is fantastic at picking a ball out and can create a chance out of nothing, or we get Ziyech in the first half of West Brom, where genuinely I don't think I've seen a player misplace so many through balls in my entire life. That was painful to watch in the first half. And I like Ziyech as well, just to make it clear, but that was horrible to watch. But yeah, I guess I'd go with Havertz, Werner, and then Ziyech / Hudson-Odoi.
I definitely see what you're saying. If you want to start Ziyech, I agree you shouldn't start Mount, because I don't like a front three of Mount, Havertz, Ziyech. There is not enough striker finishing gene in that to me. And there's that. So I don't want to play 2-3 number 10s. You know, I don't like that. Hence why I need a Hudson-Odoi or a Pulisic, or if need be, a Werner in there alongside them. But I think because I would personally like to play Hudson-Odoi as one of the front three, for me, I'd pick Mount over Ziyech. And I see your point with the Champions League thing. If we were playing a team where I'd see the game being a little bit more open, a bit like the second leg against Atletico was a little bit, because Atletico out of nowhere had the idea to press us. Just honestly, I rate Simeone, but I've rarely seen a more stupid idea. Like, we do this every week, and they've never pressed in their lives. So they were just dreadful at pressing. Like, Barnsley pressed better than Atletico Madrid, honestly. Like, what was he doing, thinking anyway? But in an open game, I would 100% pick Ziyech for exactly those reasons. He's comfortable in the Champions League. He's confident. And he knows what he's doing when he has that extra bit of gap and space and less physicality like we have in the Champions League compared to the Prem. But because I don't see the Porto game being open, then I'd prefer a Mount over a Ziyech. And yeah, regardless. Alex needs to head off in a minute. So before Pais and myself, continue this point for a couple of minutes more and then talk about the Kepa Rudiger situation for a minute. I would like to get the score predictions from all of you guys. Let me start with Alex. How do you think this first leg will go? And then you can, because I'm not sure whether we'll have you on before the second leg, you might, give us some indication of who you think will go through eventually as well.
I think overall Chelsea are going through. So let from staff, and Chelsea are going to the final of Champions League. So you get excited over that. And I think this first leg is probably going to be a 1-0 Chelsea. I think it's just going to be one goal, and I think Porto will shut it out. And I don't see them getting a goal. But yeah, that's a prediction, 1-0 to Chelsea. Fair
enough. Pais, what about you?
It's going to be difficult. I think it's either going to be 1-0 or 2-0 Chelsea. I just think it depends on the front three we play. I think if Havertz plays the false 9, we might get 2 goals. But if not, I think it will be 1-0 to Chelsea. I hope we don't concede. But I don't know, man. Like, I just hope it stays as tight, as obviously it has been before West Brom. Hopefully, the red card was the main factor in that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, in terms of Porto's attack, I mean, Marega, I think there are other strikers out, so we don't have any excuse for not winning. So, I mean, Corona's a decent player, but for me, Diaz as well, but they don't really have too much that scares me. So I'll say 2-0 Chelsea, if I'm being positive. And also, I want to mention I've just seen that Malang Sarr can now play against us, so that's also something interesting to
But
sort of
let's
talk
be honest,
about.
he won't anyway.
Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes he plays, sometimes he don't, doesn't he? Depends.
Yeah, it's in and out, but it is in and out. To be fair, he'll probably come on as a sub if Porto needs to shatter a game, but because I think Chelsea will go ahead, I don't think Sarr will play.
Yeah, no, that is fair. Ali Reza is probably the most confident shout I've ever seen anyone make. Kovacic will score from outside the box. Fair enough.
Bro,
you should put a bet on that
if
because you'll make good money.
If Kovacic scores a screamer, I'll literally run around my room going mental, mate. that never happened.
If Kovacic scores a screamer, Pi's face reveal on the play race. But my score prediction, I think I'm going to say 2-1. I think after what happened on Saturday, regardless of who plays at the back three, I think there'll be something nervous in there. We'll concede a stupid goal, some stupid double deflection or something just annoying, or some stupid, free kick that when Alonso gives the ball away or gives a free kick away, because I wouldn't be surprised if Alonso actually starts, because Tuchel has this weird fetish for him. Don't understand it, but anyway. So I think 2-1. I would be okay with that. I mean, we're the away team, so a 2-1 I'd be very happy with. I won't lie. But yeah, Alex, before myself and Pice, keep going, I really appreciate you coming on. I really hope that, your predictions can come true. We get dubbed tomorrow. We go through in the end. That's all I want to see. I wish you a wonderful day. Good luck and good fun on Arsenal Fan TV. Just talking about Slavia Prague. Big up for you for that. And appreciate you coming on. Follow him on Twitter. His link is down in the description. And I'll talk to you soon, bro.
Brilliant. I will do. And thanks for having me on. It's nice to meet you too, Pies. Have a good stream, guys.
Yeah,
See you later.
bro. See you.
Bye.
Brilliant. So, Pice, a couple of other things that I would like to discuss before we get on to the Kepa Rudiger thing. Obviously, someone mentioned it in a comment a minute ago, just because, Alex made the point and I kind of forgot about it now. Giroud as this impact sub makes sense, and we have 5 subs. Do you think, Tuchel has said, in my opinion, almost too many times, I need to get used to playing 3 with 3 subs again. I'm like, well, at least you have 5 now. How do you think that will go? Because I really don't know about Kante. Like, is there much point in bringing him on? Like, it just seems dangerous. Do you know what I mean?
It depends what the score is. Like, if it's like 1-0 or something with like 20 minutes to go, I think he'll sub him on. But again, we don't know the full extent of his fitness. I mean, bench could mean ready for 40 minutes. Bench could mean ready for 10 minutes. We don't know. He's not really specified, so we can only guess. But I would, again, like it's all good saying, I'll bring him on, but as you said, how much is a risk will it be? I guess Tuchel will have to Tuchel's the judge of that. Only he knows, really. He's not really told us. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that question, to be fair.
It really is. It really is. And just quickly, I've seen you comment a few times that question by Football Style. I don't know what you mean by this statement. I presume English isn't your first language, but Havertz, he smashed Porto in the past. Did he?
He played for Leverkusen, didn't he? And got a goal and assist against Porto.
Well, that's not smashing him, is it?
He did play. He did.
I thought he was talking about, I don't know, Havertz had some sort of got invited a little friend to a hotel room or something dodgy.
No. He just played really well against Porto in the past for Leverkusen. So I think that's what he means.
No, that is fair then. I mean, yeah, both of us would start Havertz anyway, and I'm hoping Tuchel will too. But I guess it's time we talk about the title and the thumbnail as well. Rudiger versus Kepa. How bad was that really? I'll tell you quickly. Did you watch the press conference with Tuchel today, Price?
I did. It was something that I was expected to sort of like play it down a little bit. Everything's fine, but I did reach out to a few people because I was like really interested in knowing what happened, and they did say to me that it was more than just pushes and shoves and stuff like that. It was more like grabbing around the neck and kind of it got really physical. It wasn't like punches or anything, but it got close to that. But Tuchel stepped in and everything broke up quickly. So, and obviously I saw the interview with Alonso. Alonso was like saying this thing happens all the time and stuff like that. And don't necessarily know if that's true or not. I know bad tackles happen, but obviously what the Athletic said as well was, Kepa was was basically saying a few things to Rudiger, and then Rudiger reacted, went in with a tackle the next time Kepa got the ball, and then everything sort of like kicked off. So it sounded like Kepa started it, because that's what Simon Johnson said on Ornstein's podcast today. So that's interesting, because everyone was like, "Oh, Rudiger's the troublemaker," but it sounds like
it's weird because if Kepa started it, why was Rudiger the one sent inside?
Because of the tackle,
To me, it
apparently, was
doesn't
really
correlate.
bad. Yeah, the tackle was really bad, apparently, and then Rudiger started grabbing Kepa. So, but apparently Kepa was like the one verbally, saying things to Rudiger. So, I mean, it's all a bit up in the air at the moment, but and it's definitely not fake, by the way. It's not fake, as one of the comments said. It definitely happened. The Athletic don't put their reliability on the line for stuff like this, and it was not just them; it was multiple people as well. So it's not fake. It did happen, but
it even initially came from Matt Law. He was the first one to report it.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think Matt Law just doesn't like Rudiger anyway. So I was no surprise it came from him.
Who does Matt Law like? That's not English.
No, yeah, true. But we just have to move on and just hope that, everything's fine. And good to hear that Simon Johnson did say as well, again on the podcast, they did a podcast with Ornstein on the Athletic today. He said afterwards there was a lot of hugs and stuff. So I guess it's sorted now, hopefully, anyway, because, Tuchel may let this one slip, but let me tell you, if these players see Tuchel's angry side, they ain't going to like it. Like, he's an angry guy when he wants to be, and he will punish people. So I just hope everything is sorted now.
Yeah, exactly. I did hear a few things about this as well. From what I was told, it was even a little bit more extreme than what you said. Again, I don't know how true that is or whatever. It's a difficult one. Obviously, how the Athletic reported how it happened, there was also talk that Rudiger and Kepa were kind of already going at each other during the West Brom game. After, I think Rudiger was shouting things at the pitch, and Kepa was kind of like telling him to shut up or something like that. Don't really 100% know like the ins and outs and stuff, but it's a weird one. To say how bad it was, what I was getting at in terms of talking about the press conference, I was personally surprised how happy Tuchel was to speak about it in more depth than I thought. Plus, I know you said he downplayed it. To me, he didn't downplay it as much, because he kind of went back on his own words, said, I just want to make this clear, it was something serious. And that surprised me. I didn't necessarily expect him to make it so obvious and so clear that it was a serious thing, because I thought of it more the way Alonso spoke. Like, this just happens in training every now and again. And Tuchel was like, it happens, but not very often. Like, and that made me think it has to be a bit more extreme than just a bit of pushing and shoving and stuff. And then obviously I was told after, and like I said, even more extreme to what you were told. Again, we don't know what exactly is true, I suppose, but they made up after. So I don't think this is necessarily the worst thing in the world. But the incident itself might have been bad, and I actually liked how Kovacic spoke about it. It's like, you just have a fight with your brother. Doesn't mean you hate the guy now, but when it ends up being punches thrown, or when it ends up going at your throat or whatever, like, it happens. Should you see a football club as a family? I don't know. Maybe it's not quite as close with your brother, but along the lines, it made sense how Kovacic painted it. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think if anything, of course, you don't want a proper serious physical fight to happen in the first place. A bit of competitiveness is good, but not over the edge. But the fact that they were capable of making up with each other so quickly, I think is a very good thing, and a sign of good team spirit, if that makes sense.
No, I do agree, but also I think, Tuchel probably forced them to sort it out between themselves. That's what I'd probably think anyway, but I just hope there's not any lasting bad blood, honestly. We'll end up finding out more in the future anyway, I'm sure of that. So, but hopefully for now it's the end of it, because we've got a big game tomorrow. It can't be the centre of attention.
Why am I getting attacked by Rudiger? Don't understand this.
Rudiger destroyed.
How can I speak in an Italian accent? I'm not I have Italian blood, and I speak a little bit of Italian, but I'm not like fluent. And my English is, I can also not speak English with an Austrian or German accent. I cannot do this. I am sorry. Although I do appreciate a City fan just being about and watching us for a good while. I do appreciate it. But yeah, no, I 100% agree. I don't think it's that bad of a thing. Something that I want to mention as well, there was also reported a bit of a coming together and a exchange of harsh words between Rhys James and Aspie after the game. on Saturday. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing. Have a go at each other. Why the hell not? If you have a go at each other, might sort both of them out for the next game. Make sure they don't have lapses of concentration because they don't want to go at each other again. I don't think any of these things are a bad thing.
Laurenz, as well. Can I just say,
talking
about this whole sort of situation, it just made me realise how much the media is crazy within football nowadays and how things pick up. Right, I remember John Obi Mikel doing an interview once where he said, at half-time of games when we were losing, John Terry used to grab people around the throat and pin them up against the wall in the dressing room and shit like that. So, in our proper old teams, fights used to happen all the time. So, now that there's a bit of pushing and shoving in training, Matt Law's on it, athletics on it, it's just crazy how football's changed. Honestly, modern football is mental. Mikel, if you guys haven't seen that interview, I'll try and find it, link it to you, but it's brilliant. He said, Terry and Lampard and Drogba used to all proper pin each other up against the wall and shout and everything. Everyone just seems like such babies nowadays, honestly.
That's why, Lampard spoke about this to some extent when he came in, and obviously it came out the huge fines that were implemented at Chelsea. I can't remember which player, but from the slightly more olden days, we didn't really have fines at Chelsea during those days because when the likes of JT and Frank as a player and Drogba and whatever were about and check, people wouldn't even step out of line because you didn't need fines. You'd have more consequences by your captain than bloody paying a fine. And it wasn't necessary then. People didn't step out of line because they'd have more serious problems than paying £1,000 or whatever, which they don't, let's be honest, care about when you make 100k a week. You don't care whether I'm 5 minutes late, shit, I have to pay 5k up, and what? It's not like they care, let's be honest. So 100% is one of those. But I do want to talk about this as the last thing. And I was surprised by this the most of this press conference, how Tuchel seemed more accepting than I thought he would be of the fact that there is clearly a leak in the club. But this is not the first time this leak has happened. So many times there's been information coming out from team meetings, not necessarily on the Tuchel, but when the Frank thing happened, way too many times, way too many of these things consistently come out. Obviously the report came out by The Athletic how the team meeting on Sunday about the West Brom game went. Then no player was allowed to speak. Tuchel was very harsh, showing individual mistakes by Zuma and Jorginho and others as well. And players, unlike usual, weren't invited to share their thoughts on the situation. So I don't like the league thing. And I was surprised at how fine Tuchel seemed to be with it. I know he said it's not worth my effort and time to try and find out who it is. It just distracts me from more important things. So he isn't totally fine with it. But he says, I've had this at PSG as well. It just happens. You can't necessarily always stop it. That's just how the modern day is. But I don't like it. And to me, because we've had this issue, we've had it when Jose got sacked, we had it with Kante, we had it with Sarri. I mean, let's be honest, with Sarri was probably Rob Green, but still, because he needed to make some sort of money after his career. And now and with Frank as well, and now as well. I personally don't think it's a player. I think it's some of the staff. Because it's too unlikely to keep signing players to keep doing it. It's much more likely to consistently be the same person as part of the staff and has been here for God knows how long.
No, I completely agree. There's definitely a mole somewhere. In terms of you saying, Tuchel's happy, well, not happy, but more accepting than you thought. I do agree, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's stuff going on behind the scenes. Him talking to his actual assistants and stuff, and being very annoyed. But if he comes across angry in the press conference and stuff, you got to think that's another thing to write about, and it will just go on forever. So he's probably calmed himself down and just came out trying to be as content with it as possible. But I know what Tuchel's like and his character. He won't be happy with this deep down. And as time passes on, I remember someone saying, a PSG fan who'd followed Tuchel for a long time, I spoke to him and I said, how's Tuchel? What's he like and stuff, when I didn't really know anything about him. And he was like, yeah, Tuchel's quite a nice guy, he's quite calm, but over time, if things keep happening, he will get really annoyed and he'll start saying things that can get him sacked and things like that. So I hope that, he doesn't. I hope that this leak stuff sorts out, because he could end up getting really pissed off and just saying something that isn't allowed, because he's an angry guy. People think people see smiles and stuff and think, oh, what a nice guy. He is, but he's got a bad side as well. You know, he can be very aggressive. In his Mainz days, he made one of the players sort of crawl on their knees and crawl around the training pitch as a punishment for not listening. So, you know, he's not if you get on his bad side, he's not someone you want to deal with. And that's why he has been sacked before with PSG. He argued with Leonardo so many times about different things. He got angry. And as I said, when he joined, I just beg this doesn't happen with Marina, because he's a top manager. You know, he has all the things that he needs to succeed in this league. It's just the old question of, will he get time? How many times have we said this? Same with Sarri. I think it was a great manager, really good ideas, something different we'd seen, but just didn't get the time. The fans and didn't like him, and, you know, different things happen. So I don't know who the player is or the staff. I don't know. I agree with you. Rob Green was probably the guy with Sarri. Maybe it's someone that's still there that isn't happy with Lampard going. Maybe someone like Joe Edwards or someone like that who was with Lampard and is still here now. I don't know. Maybe it is a player like someone that's left out. Maybe even it's Tammy. I don't know. You don't know who's friends with Matt Law. You don't. So they'll never say. We can only speculate. But I would say it's either a staff member who's very unhappy that Lampard left, or a player that has been frozen out or doesn't play very much, are the most likely sort of people to do this.
I think in terms of staff, I think it's more like not necessarily coaching staff. I think it's like a physio, something like that, rather than a bigger name like Joe Edwards. I mean, Joe Edwards looks too nice to be doing things like that to me anyway, but that obviously I don't know. But I don't think it will be one of the coaching staff. I think it will just be one of the backroom people. Like I said, a physio. I don't know. I don't think the kit man, he's been around for too long, but someone like that is what I feel makes the most sense. And I quickly just want to touch on this by patches. He kept saying this a few times. Matt Law and whatever. You can criticize Matt Law all you want. The problem is Matt Law. The problem is people feeding Matt Law the story. Matt Law wouldn't have anything to write about if he wasn't told this in the first place. And at the end of the day, Matt Law wouldn't be doing his job if he is told that and doesn't report on it. Matt Law isn't even a Chelsea fan. He's an Aston Villa fan. His job is to report on Chelsea and get clicks for, the Telegraph, and get reads and reviews for the Telegraph. That's his job, Just like Thomas Tuchel's job is to get Chelsea winning, that's Matt Law's job. So don't run around, saying Matt Law is this and Matt Law is that. Maybe some of the, coverage on the whole Frank Lampard thing and Rudiger after and a few of the other players wasn't necessarily fair. But essentially, if that's what they're told, they still have to do their jobs. They still have to do their jobs. And I also agree with Emmanuel. I mean, I know we're talking about it, so that's somewhat making it a big thing. But more about the leak, that's more of what I want to make a slightly bigger deal. But the fights, I don't want to make this a big deal either. Like myself and Pi said, they got it out the way. I fully believe that it's all good now. And, I think it's calm, and I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world. Like, go at each other, sort itself out after. If anything, that creates a tighter bond after. If they properly got it out of the way and put it behind them, if anything, that puts them closer together and gives a stronger bond than if the fight didn't happen. Obviously, if it's still somewhat in the air and they stop talking to each other a little bit, and, you don't want that. But the way it's been put across, at least, it sounds like it was properly put out of the world and everything's good now. And I think that's then, if anything, can have a good effect rather than a bad effect. For example, I don't think it's any of the players. I don't think so, because it's happened way too much over the last nearly decade. And none of the players have been here for long enough for that to be the case. So I think we'd just be way too unlucky to consistently have a player that does something like that. But
then again, if it is like a physio or someone, the players have to be feeding the physio the info, because they're not going to be in the team meetings, are they? So
no, but that's not a bad thing. Like, if you're on the physio bench and you talk about it, or you never know, like there's sometimes 5-6 players at the same time in the physio room. Maybe they just spoke about it, how the team meeting went, and the physios are there just massaging them.
But then again, Laurenz. But then again, Tuchel said whatever said in the team meeting, it shouldn't go out to anyone. So if they're talking about,
I don't think he classes the physios as that. Do you?
Well, I don't know, because again, if I think it just means whatever we talk about here, if we was off stream, it doesn't go anywhere else. It's kind of the same thing. the players have relationships with everyone in the club. I think Tuchel's aware of that probably. So
yeah, I
don't
agree.
know.
It's probably Werner.
That's definitely not Werner. It'll be someone English that knows Matt Law and knows Simon Johnson, someone like that. It won't be someone foreign. Definitely not.
Yeah, and it's not going to be someone of color either. Sorry, because I don't think these people like the likes of certain journalists, personally. But maybe that's a bit of a controversial statement by myself. But yeah, the last thing I want to touch on quickly is because I've heard it, or not. I've heard it. I felt this. Obviously, you've touched on the angry side of Tuchel. I do hope. I mean, he's certainly matured a bit since his mind stays. I don't think he'd be doing that anymore. But he certainly still has the angry streak to him, 100%. And I think, obviously, player power has been an issue at Chelsea for a long time. And I think Tuchel would know how to deal with it, but maybe too extreme. And I think he needs one way to make sure this doesn't happen. Stop leaving Tammy out of the squad. This is not a healthy thing to do for the squad spirit. I don't like it. Like, that's dangerous to me. You can't take the best mate of Callum and Mason and Reece, and don't leave him out too many times without explanations. Like, that's not a good thing. Do you see what I mean? I think that could go badly if he keeps doing that for too long.
Agree and disagree. Agree because obviously Tammy has friends at the club and it doesn't really look good, but disagree because he's the manager, it's his decision. If he doesn't think you're good enough, why is he going to have you in the squad when we've got Giroud, we've got Havertz at false nine, we've got Werner who plays up top. Whether or not you think these players are better than Tammy or not is not the point. The point is if he doesn't fancy Tammy, he doesn't fancy Tammy. You know what I mean? And it's just as simple as that for me. And it's Chelsea. I'd just say to some of these players, obviously they're never going to listen to this, but just grow up. You've got your friends, but just grow up. Like, if you're real, I've read some stuff about players aren't happy with Tuchel because they're leaving Tammy out. Wah. Cry about it all you want. Tuchel is the manager. He makes the decisions. Chelsea is not a group of where you go out and play with your friends, and you know what I mean. It's Chelsea. It's crazy. This would never happen back in the day. So, just to these players that are angry with Tuchel, supposedly, just grow up and do your job. You're a professional. You know what I mean? It really annoys me, honestly. If he doesn't want Tammy in the squad, you don't want Tammy in the squad. Simple as that. People were crying about Tomori as well. After a while, I didn't like the way Lampard throws out Tomori, but because of the other players weren't performing either, I think that was the problem. But when we've got Havertz, false nine, and when we're playing Giroud, I just think they're better options than Tammy. I don't know whether you agree or not, but I personally...
obviously, I don't agree that Tammy's a worse option than Giroud. I've said this many times, but Giroud isn't... When was the last time Giroud was brought on? Yes, I know he's on the bench, but he's not using him anyway. So just to keep squad happiness, the odd time out, just put Tammy on the bench and Giroud out there. If your plan is to bring Havertz on anyway, for example, like last time when Havertz didn't start, it doesn't really matter who the other striker is. He probably wouldn't have brought Giroud on anyway. So just put Tammy on there just to keep things a bit calmer. Do you know what I mean? I agree with you. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, but sadly, modern day football is how it is. And I'm not even saying this is a problem. I'm just saying it could become a problem if this is what keeps happening. Whether Tammy leaves in the summer or not, don't make things more strenuous than they are. I mean, we heard with the Frank thing, the Tomori thing, that people didn't like that. And if that goes for Frank, it will go for Tuchel too. That's all I'm thinking about.
I can see what you mean, but I don't know. It's harsh to say. It's the problem with having three strikers as well. I've always said this.
Essentially, we have four, isn't it? Three would be okay.
Yeah, four then. So that's the problem as well. And also, remember, this happened with Giroud under Lampard as well. But the problem with I don't know about you, but I guess Tammy has academy bias from people who everyone sort of cares for. But when Giroud was completely out of the squad by Lampard, no one really cared, and it's just sad to see. Really, I don't know. It's just sad to see that some fans just love Tammy so much and don't love Giroud. Honestly, it's annoying, but that's a separate debate. And in the end, Giroud won because him and Pulisic dragged us to top four last season. So I don't know, man. I don't know what will happen, but I mean, Tammy is in the squad tomorrow. Whether or not that's because we've got extra subs, probably.
Probably, yeah.
But let's see what happens. But to be honest, the club have probably already decided by now to sell Tammy, because why else would Tuchel be, leaving him out? To be honest with you, that's probably the way I look at it. To be honest, I think they've
But
probably.
even then, if the club decided to sell him, leaving him out the squad completely for too long will drastically devalue him for the transfer market in the summer. Like, I'm not saying we have to force start him, but leaving him out the squad completely will reduce value.
I don't know though, because he does that. He's young and English, and he scored 15 goals last season.
No, I'm not saying it makes him drop his value to zero, but as in still drop it by a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. There's definitely something going. I mean, remember Tuchel hooked Tammy twice at 45 minutes before, so he clearly doesn't rate him. I mean, what can we do about it? Unless you're a Tammy fan,
I found that outrageous anyway. Some of the performance that Werner has had, the man's played the full 90, but Tammy, he wasn't great, but
I agree, but remember that Tuchel is German and he does have bias, and also that they brought him in because to try and get the best out of Werner and Havertz. So it's natural that he probably picks him more. I know it's frustrating because Werner's been so bad for us, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, the club don't want to lose. The club want value for what they paid for the two players, so they're going to start a lot, whether or not we like it. It's truth. Rudiger came back in the team. They want his value back up. It's a simple thing. I'm surprised we haven't seen Kepa more, to be honest. I really thought we was going to see Kepa more because of the value and stuff, and the way Lampard completely just throws him out. I'm really surprised we haven't seen Kepa in more Premier games.
We'll see what a Kepa plays against City, FA Cup. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. Hope he doesn't, by the way, but I'll have to see what happens. But I think some of it comes from, Marina and stuff as well. She likes her value for money. So, I don't know. You never know what's influencing the manager and what he's been told as well. So, you just don't know. There could be a lot of things going up higher up as well.
Yeah, there could be. There could be. I have one or two more points that I'd like to make. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have 150 people watching. Big up to all of you. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be massively appreciated. Smash that like button. Let me see how many likes we have. We have 86 likes. Come on, let's hit 100 likes. It's only 14 away. Just 14 more of you need to go down below and smash that like button. I massively appreciate it. And if you want to make sure that we talk about your comment, if you have any quick topic that you want us to discuss, do use the super chat function. Be massively appreciated. Support the channel, of course. The one thing I did want to say is, and it might still be true what you said about the German thing, but you see, it's like saying you have to like every English person. Do you know what I mean? Clearly not. I mean, Frank did what he did with Tomori. And I mean, half of Germany actually hates Timo Werner. I mean, that's why every fan always sang Timo Werner is the son of a, in obviously German, every opposition fan sang that. And I mean, bloody Ben Chilwell started singing it at some point, and that's funny. That cracked me up, honestly. But I'm not sure if just because you're German doesn't mean you need to like every other German. I mean, for Brazilians, maybe it works a little bit like that because they just seem to love each other so much. They go out of their own continent and they get together and they're all footballers. But I think I don't know. Do you see what I mean? It's not like you like every English person. I like every Austrian. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do see what you mean. It sounds funny, but I don't know. I haven't met Tuchel personally. I haven't spoke to him and said, "Oh, do you really like Kai because he's German?" I don't know. It's just a theory, No.
I'm not saying you're stating it as fact.
No. I'm just speculating, because sometimes, Laurenz, I watch Werner, I'm like, there is no way he's starting next game, and he starts next game, and I'm like, what else could it be? Is it genuinely because he's German? He's been so bad. What is the actual? You know what I mean? If he starts Werner tomorrow, why? It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? He's playing against such a defensive team. What? I'll just be so baffled. But then again, I won't be shocked. I'm expecting to see Werner start tomorrow. I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one. But hey, even against Atletico, obviously Werner started in the second leg. But he actually started up front, which I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But in the end, it worked because Atletico played a bit higher than we expected them. Not for the entire game. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think that happened because Simeone said he was going to press us. So I think that Tuchel sort of read that as, when we get at the press, you can play a ball through to Werner, that type of thing. So I think that's why he did that, because they played higher up, as you said, and wasn't really more of a deep block. They had to come at us. So I kind of do see the logic in that one. But first leg, no, I don't see the. I didn't
even
see the
against
logic
West
in
Brom,
that.
he played.
West Brom, like again, I don't think he was that good. People was like, "Oh, he's really
No,
good."
but I think he played striker, not out wide.
Yeah, and again, I don't think he was that good either. So like,
No.
I don't know.
But no one was that day, really.
No, I don't know. There's been a lot of times where he started where I just don't think he deserves to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and easy saying, the song about Timo Werner or whatever is a long time ago, man. He's German, and I said I still sing it, not because I don't support the play. I just think the song's funny. And I went to, I'm sure all of you guys know, the Oktoberfest that happens in Munich all the time, and I was down. We was all drunk and hammered. And as if you ever get the chance, and obviously the global situation allows it, and Oktoberfest is back, it's just a good laugh, right? And there was just this, these are huge tents that they have there of like 20, 30,000 people in one huge tent, obviously all drinking and eating and whatever. And every few minutes, people started chanting a chant about Dortmund and the Timo Werner chant. So, and I just thought it was so funny that I still sometimes just walk around my flat singing the Timo Werner song, not because I hate him, but just because I think the song's funny. So, easy, not in a way of I don't support the player, but I just think it's funny. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to leave it here. It's been going for 1.5 hours. Again, Pys, I really do appreciate you coming on last second. Monster has messaged me, has apologized. He has had a bit of a reason. So fair play. I do apologize for promoting the stream with Monster, and it then didn't end up happening that way. I do apologize. But hey, the super sub of dreams, people talk about bloody Giroud as a super sub. No, the super sub of dreams is CFCPys. Check him out on Twitter. I will put his link into the description after this stream. Appreciate you coming on. I hope I'll see you again tomorrow for the player ratings live stream. Miz, of whatever coin, I keep forgetting his name. I'm so sorry. He should be joining us as well as the stream tomorrow goes on. So big game tomorrow. Let's hope Chelsea can get the dub. We gave our score predictions. Let's hope we can be correct. Ideally, even me when I say a 2-0. No, I said 2-1, didn't I? Let's just hope we win 2-0. That'd be great. But yeah, again, Pys, thank you for coming on again. Shout out to Alex, EuroExpert. Check him out as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea. Let's hope for a big result tomorrow. And yeah, I'll see you next time.